All right, welcome to part 4 of the Middle Ages Flipped Classroom. In this part of the Flipped Classroom, we are going to be looking at the role of cities or boroughs, if you will. And remember, we just saw Siena, which is in Italy. Some of the key features of a city that you'd see often are the cathedral. That would always be in the city, the protection of the city, the center square where commerce would happen. Um, yeah. So, why were cities expanding? Well, first of all, it was because of increased population, and we said that was because of crops. These crops were um, being produced more efficiently, and there were more of them, so there was more people, there's more opportunity. The towns, um, these were centers of commerce. Um, so a lot of towns had infrastructure for commerce, like what I just showed you with the city square. Also, shops. They had. This was where most guilds were located, and guilds were extremely powerful in this time period, and we're going to talk about those when we get to labor specialization. And there was this phrase that was used in the Middle Ages that city air will set you free. In these cities, most cities were independent boroughs or independent burgesses. And because they were independent, as a serf or as a free peasant, you had the opportunity to earn a lot more money. You didn't have to be beholden to your lord. There were some definite benefits to living in the city. Also, some problems, like cities being absolutely filthy all the time. This clean street, not in the Middle Ages. Labor specialization. Like I said, guilds were a huge deal. Guilds controlled the quality, the quantity, and the price of goods. They also controlled the type of training that someone would need, and more so than that, they even controlled um, some of the social interactions that people had. So things like marriages, and you'll see that's a common thing with India. Guilds also they were community builders. This is where you would gather, right? These were your people, right? These were your masons. I mean, the masons were kind of this idea of the guild. Um, yes. Last but not least, there were a lot of innovations in banking. This came from the Islamic world and from interactions with other groups. So people were forming organizations to trade together, like the Hanseatic League, which we're going to see in just a second. Uh, and they were also forming new banks, banks that perhaps charged, that could offer protections, banks that had insurance. It was easier for people to get credit. This idea of credit was proliferating from the Islamic world. So the Hanseatic League is a great example of this. This was a group of traders in Northern Europe, as you can see here, close to England and the Northern Holy Roman Empire, and up into the Norseland. And they were also called the Hansa League, and they were a group that both provided protection and kind of pooled resources. Because remember, even though the Hanseatic League started in the 1300s, there were still invasions, there were still difficulties with protection. of goods. So they provided like armies that would go onto these ships with people. So they pooled their resources. They started using warehouses for goods. And what type of goods did they have? Lots of different ones. Timber, wax, amber, oops, resins, furs, grains like rye. So they were shipping a lot of different goods back and forth. This was really good for the economy of the cities that they were in. They would also use barges on rivers and bring those goods to port. So they were a trading organization. Their goal was to make trade easier and therefore to make more of a profit. Again, the official start date for them is 1356. So pretty late in this time period. So you can see that the Europeans were definitely not on the cutting edge of trading organizations like some other areas were. Okay, the next part we're going to get into is Christianity in Europe. This is going to be a little bit longer section, so I'm going to save it for the next part of the presentation.